The teddy bear lay abandoned on the playground swing, worn and well-loved, its button eyes somehow managing to look forlorn as the evening shadows crept across the deserted park. Gabriel Mitchell spotted it immediately as he pushed his 5-year-old daughter Emma on the adjacent swing, her giggles cutting through the crisp autumn air. "Daddy, look, someone lost their friend," Emma pointed, her swing slowing as she noticed the stuffed animal. Gabriel, exhausted from his double shift at the construction site, nodded. "Looks like it, sweetheart." His calloused hands gently brought her swing to a stop. At 32, he wore the weathered look of a man who had shouldered far more than his years should have required. His broad shoulders were strong but permanently hunched from labor, and the lines around his eyes had deepened since becoming a single father 2 years ago when Emma's mother walked out. Emma hopped off the swing and scurried over to the teddy bear. "He looks sad, Daddy." Gabriel followed, checking his watch. They needed to get home. The babysitter who watched Emma after preschool while he finished his second job had already stayed an hour longer than usual. Every extra dollar he paid her was one less for the growing stack of bills on his kitchen counter. "We should take him home with us," Emma declared, hugging the bear. "He's lonely." "Honey, that bear belongs to someone else. They're probably missing it terribly right now." Emma's face fell. "But what if they never come back for him?" Gabriel knelt down, ignoring the twinge in his knee from an old construction accident. "Then that would be very sad, but we need to give them a chance to find their bear first." He studied the teddy bear, a high-quality one, not the kind you'd find in a discount store. It wore a little blue vest with embroidered initials, LF. "Tell you what," Gabriel said, "we'll leave a note here saying we found the bear and we'll take it to the park office tomorrow. That way, whoever lost it can find it again." Emma reluctantly agreed, and Gabriel scribbled a note with his phone number, securing it to the playground fence with a small rock. They took the teddy bear home, Emma insisting on giving it a spot at their simple dinner table. "Just visiting," Gabriel reminded her as they ate their spaghetti, trying to manage her expectations. "Tomorrow will help him find his family." That night, as he tucked Emma into bed, surrounded by her own modest collection of stuffed animals, she whispered, "I hope his mommy isn't crying too much." Gabriel kissed her forehead. "We'll do our best to get him home, Em." After Emma fell asleep, Gabriel examined the bear more carefully. The vest wasn't just any fabric, it was cashmere. The bear itself was exceptionally well made, with real stitched leather paws. Someone had spent serious money on this toy. He found himself hoping they would call. A child somewhere was surely missing their beloved friend. His phone rang at 9:42 p.m., startling him as he reviewed his monthly budget at the kitchen table, trying to figure out how to make ends meet. "Hello," Gabriel answered cautiously. "Hi, I'm calling about a teddy bear." The woman's voice was soft, slightly breathless. "My son is absolutely devastated. He left his bear at the park today, and we just found your note." Relief washed over Gabriel. "Yes, we have it. My daughter was worried someone might be missing it." "You have no idea," the woman said, emotion evident in her voice. "Leo hasn't stopped crying. It was his father's bear and—" She paused. "I'm sorry, I'm Tessa Fairchild. Would it be possible to get it tonight? I know it's late, but of course," Gabriel cut in, hearing the desperation in her voice. He understood too well what it meant to see your child in distress. "We're not far from the park. We could meet there in 15 minutes. "Thank you," she said, the gratitude in her voice unmistakable. "I can't tell you what this means." Gabriel glanced at the sleeping Emma through her partially open bedroom door. He hated to leave her even briefly, but Mrs. Henderson next door was always willing to listen through the baby monitor while he made quick errands. 20 minutes later, Gabriel stood at the playground, the teddy bear tucked under his arm, illuminated by the park's security lights. A sleek black SUV pulled up, and a woman emerged, followed by a small boy who couldn't have been older than 4. Even in the dim light, Gabriel could tell this woman wasn't from his world. Her coat alone probably cost more than his monthly rent. Tessa Fairchild moved with the easy confidence of someone who had never worried about paying bills, yet there was something in her demeanor, an unexpected weariness, that seemed at odds with what he imagined a wealthy woman's life to be. "Bear." The little boy spotted the teddy and ran forward, his face a mixture of joy and relief. Gabriel knelt down and handed it over, smiling as the child clutched it tightly to his chest. "Thank you," Tessa said, approaching. Up close, her beauty was striking, dark auburn hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, elegant features, and eyes that reflected the park lights with unusual intensity. "Leo hasn't slept without that bear since his father died last year." Gabriel's expression softened. "I understand." "My daughter Emma would be the same way about her rabbit." He extended his hand. "I'm Gabriel Mitchell." Tessa shook it, her grip firm despite her delicate appearance. "Tessa Fairchild, and this is Leo." She looked down at her son, who was whispering something to his bear. "Leo, can you thank the nice man for finding Baxter?" "Thank you," Leo said, looking up with solemn eyes. "Baxter was scared without me." Gabriel smiled. "Emma, that's my daughter, made sure Baxter had dinner with us and was very comfortable." "Emma sounds like a very kind girl," Tessa remarked. "She is." Pride washed over Gabriel's tired features. "She wanted to keep him, but I explained someone was probably missing him very much." Tessa studied him with unexpected intensity. "Not many people would have gone to the trouble." Gabriel shrugged. "It was the right thing to do." A brief silence fell between them, filled with something neither quite understood. "I'd like to repay you somehow," Tessa said finally. Gabriel immediately shook his head. "No need, I'm just glad Leo has his bear back." "At least let me buy you and Emma ice cream sometime," she persisted. Leo would love to thank Emma properly. Something in her expression made it difficult for Gabriel to refuse. "She would like that," he admitted. They exchanged phone numbers, and as Gabriel watched their expensive vehicle drive away, he felt an unexpected connection to this woman whose life seemed worlds away from his own. The next morning, Gabriel had almost convinced himself the encounter wouldn't lead anywhere. Women like Tessa Fairchild didn't really mix with men like him. But as he dropped Emma at preschool before heading to his construction job, his phone buzzed with a text. "Leo insists on thanking Emma today. Any chance you're free after school? The ice cream shop on Main Street at 4. Gabriel stared at the message. His afternoon job didn't start until 5:30. "Emma would love that. See you at 4, he replied before he could overthink it. Throughout his physically demanding day, Gabriel found his thoughts drifting to Tessa's face, the worry in her eyes when she mentioned her late husband, the grateful smile when he handed over the bear. There had been something unguarded about her that didn't match his assumptions about wealthy people. At the ice cream shop, Emma bounced excitedly next to him. "Is Leo bringing Baxter?" "I think so, sweetheart." When Tessa and Leo entered, Gabriel was struck again by her natural elegance. Today, in simple jeans and a cashmere sweater, she looked less like the stereotypical rich woman he'd imagined and more like, well, a mom. A beautiful mom, but still someone whose primary concern was clearly her son. Leo clutched Baxter, and Emma immediately engaged him in conversation about their favorite ice cream flavors. Soon, the children were giggling together at a small table while Gabriel and Tessa sat nearby. "Your daughter is wonderful," Tessa commented, watching the children. "So confident and kind." "She's my world," Gabriel said simply. "Has been since the day she was born." Tessa's eyes softened. "You're raising her alone," Gabriel nodded. Her mother left when Emma was 3, decided family life wasn't for her after all. He rarely spoke about this to anyone, but something about Tessa made it feel natural to share. "I'm sorry, that must be incredibly difficult. We manage." Gabriel smiled, watching Emma help Leo with a dripping cone. "What about you? You mentioned Leo's father." Pain flashed across Tessa's face. "Cancer, 14 months ago. It was unexpected and fast." She twisted her wedding ring, a simple platinum band rather than the ostentatious diamond he might have expected. "James and I were college sweethearts. We built everything together." Gabriel realized she was referring to more than just a family. The name Fairchild nagged at his memory. "What is it that you do, exactly?" A small, almost embarrassed smile touched her lips. "I run Fairchild Enterprises. Tech development, mostly. James founded it, but we were partners from the beginning." Gabriel's eyes widened slightly. Fairchild Enterprises was a household name, one of the largest tech companies in the country. He'd read about them in the business section of the paper. he sometimes picked up at the diner where he occasionally splurged on breakfast with Emma. "That sounds demanding," he said carefully, not wanting to acknowledge the vast gulf that had just opened between them. Tessa laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. "That's one word for it. Overwhelming is another, especially with Leo." Her expression sobered. "James was such a hands-on father. I'm trying, but—" "You're doing great," Gabriel said automatically, recognizing the self-doubt in her voice. It was the same doubt he felt every time he had to work late and miss Emma's bedtime. Tessa looked at him gratefully. "How do you do it?" "Work and raise Emma, one day at a time," he answered honestly. "Sometimes 1 hour at a time. I work construction during the day and bartend 3 nights a week. It's not ideal, but it pays the bills." Tessa studied him, and Gabriel felt suddenly self-conscious of his worn jeans and the permanent calluses on his hands. But her next words surprised him. "You're amazing, you know that. To do all that and raise such a well-adjusted child." Before Gabriel could respond, Emma and Leo rushed over, ice cream smeared across their faces. "Can Leo come to our house to play?" Emma asked excitedly. Gabriel glanced at Tessa, expecting her to politely decline, but she was looking at her son with wonder. Leo, typically shy according to Tessa, was animated and smiling. "That would be lovely," Tessa said, meeting Gabriel's surprised gaze. "If it's all right with Gabriel, of course." Gabriel hesitated only briefly. "Our place is small," he warned, "and not exactly in the best neighborhood." Tessa waved his concern away. "Leo doesn't care about that, and neither do I." And that was how Tessa Fairchild, CEO of a billion-dollar company, ended up in Gabriel Mitchell's modest 2-bedroom apartment, sitting on his second-hand couch while their children played with Emma's toys on the living room floor. Gabriel had called his evening job to say he'd be late, something he'd never done before. His supervisor had been surprisingly understanding, telling him to take the night off. It was probably the first time Gabriel had put his personal life ahead of work in years. "Would you like some coffee?" he offered, acutely aware of the chipped mugs and the dripping faucet in his kitchen. "I'd love some," Tessa said, appearing completely at ease despite surroundings that must have been a stark contrast to her usual environment. As Gabriel brewed the coffee, he watched Tessa interact with the children. There was nothing condescending in her manner, no hint that she felt out of place in his humble home. When she looked up and caught him watching, the smile she gave him sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. Over coffee, their conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from their children's personalities to their own childhoods, hers privileged but lonely as the daughter of distant parents, his working class but rich with family connections, until he lost his parents in a car accident shortly after Emma was born. "Is that why you're so dedicated to Emma?" Tessa asked. "Because you know what it's like to lose parents." Gabriel considered this. "Partly, but mostly it's just, she's everything to me. When her mother left, I promised Emma I would always be there, that we'd be okay, just the two of us." "And you are," Tessa observed, watching Emma patiently show Leo how to build a block tower. "More than okay," Gabriel followed her gaze. "We have our struggles. Money's always tight. I worry about giving her enough opportunities, enough of my time." "Time is what matters most," Tessa said softly. "After James died, I buried myself in work. It took months before I realized Leo needed me present more than he needed the security of the company's future." She looked down at her mug. "I've been trying to balance better." "That's all any parent can do," Gabriel said. "Try their best." When it was time for Tessa and Leo to leave, both children protested vigorously. "5 more minutes," they pleaded in unison, which turned into another half-hour of play. At the door, Tessa hesitated. "Thank you for this. Leo hasn't been this animated since before James died." "Emma had a great time too," Gabriel said. "They get along well." "They do," Tessa agreed, then added with unexpected directness, "I'd like to see you again, Gabriel. Both of you." Gabriel was caught off guard. "I'd like that too," he admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. Over the next few weeks, what started as playdates for their children evolved into something more. They met at parks, museums, and sometimes at Gabriel's apartment. Tessa never invited them to her home, which Gabriel assumed was because she didn't want to emphasize the disparity in their circumstances. What struck Gabriel most was how Tessa seemed to relax in his company, as if shedding a heavy coat. During one visit to a children's museum, while their kids explored an interactive exhibit, she confessed that most people in her life wanted something from her business advantages, connections, or simply the cachet of being associated with her wealth. "But not you," she said, watching him closely. "You've never once asked me about my company or seemed impressed by anything except how I am with Leo," Gabriel shrugged. "That's what matters, isn't it? Not what you own, but who you are." The kiss that followed was unexpected, but felt somehow inevitable, a gentle pressing of lips that deepened into something that left them both breathless and slightly stunned. "I wasn't planning to do that," Tessa whispered against his mouth. Gabriel smiled. "I'm glad you did." Their relationship progressed cautiously after that. Gabriel was protective of Emma's feelings, wary of introducing a woman into her life who might disappear. Tessa seemed to understand, never pushing for more than he was ready to give. They stole moments together when the children were occupied, sharing kisses and increasingly personal conversations. Gabriel learned that despite her wealth, Tessa's life wasn't as perfect as he'd imagined. The pressures of running a massive company while raising a grieving child alone had taken their toll. She confessed to feeling isolated, surrounded by people who treated her differently after James died, either with excessive pity or with calculated interest in her newly single status. "With you, I'm just Tessa," she told him one evening as they sat on a park bench watching their children play. "Not the widow, not the CEO, not a Fairchild, just me." Gabriel took her hand, his work-roughened fingers entwining with her smooth ones. "That's all I've ever seen," he said honestly. But while their emotional connection deepened, Gabriel couldn't ignore the practical realities. When Tessa mentioned a charity gala she needed to attend, he joked about not owning a suit nice enough for such an event. The flash of hurt in her eyes made him realize she'd been considering asking him to accompany her. After 2 months of dating, though they hadn't formally defined their relationship, Gabriel was working overtime on a construction project when he received an urgent call from Emma's after-school program. She had fallen on the playground and might need stitches. Gabriel's stomach dropped. He was an hour away in traffic, and his foreman wouldn't let him leave in the middle of a critical concrete pour. In desperation, he called Tessa. "I hate to ask, but could you possibly pick up Emma? She's hurt, and I can't get away from work for at least another hour." "I'm already on my way," Tessa said without hesitation. "Text me the details." When Gabriel finally arrived at the emergency room 3 hours later, he found Emma sitting up in a bed, a bandage on her forehead, giggling as Tessa read her a story. Leo was curled up asleep on a chair nearby, clutching Baxter. "Daddy," Emma exclaimed, "I got 4 stitches, and I didn't cry at all. Tessa held my hand the whole time." Gabriel embraced his daughter carefully, then looked at Tessa with profound gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done. That's what family does," Tessa said simply, then looked startled by her own words. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep in her hospital bed, Tessa touched Gabriel's arm. "I meant what I said earlier. About family." Gabriel looked at her, this woman who had walked into his life because of a lost teddy bear and somehow become essential to it. "I know it's complicated," he began. "Our lives are so different, are they?" Tessa challenged. "We're both single parents doing our best. We both put our children first. We both know what it means to lose someone." She took a deep breath. "The rest is just circumstance." "Circumstance matters," Gabriel argued gently. "You live in a world I know nothing about." "Then let me show you," Tessa said. "Come to my home, bring Emma. Let me show you that part of my life isn't as intimidating as you think." 2 days later, Gabriel drove his aging pickup truck through the gates of Tessa's estate with Emma bouncing excitedly in her booster seat. He had been prepared for ostentation, but was surprised by the tasteful modernity of the house, expansive but not showy, with walls of windows overlooking gardens where Leo was already playing. "You live in a castle," Emma gasped, her eyes wide. Gabriel felt a momentary pang of inadequacy, watching his daughter's awe at surroundings so different from their apartment. But then Leo came running, Baxter in tow, and Emma was off, the house forgotten in the excitement of seeing her friend. Tessa gave them a tour, and Gabriel was struck by how the space, for all its luxury, felt lived in. Leo's toys were scattered in a playroom. Family photos lined the walls. The kitchen, though equipped with professional-grade appliances, had children's artwork magneted to the refrigerator. "Not quite what you expected?" Tessa asked, noting his expression. "It's beautiful," Gabriel admitted, "but it feels like a home, not a showpiece." "That was important to James and me," she explained as they moved to the living room. "We both grew up in houses that felt like museums. We wanted Leo to have a real home." Over dinner, which Tessa had cooked herself, to Gabriel's surprise, she talked more about her work, the pressures and responsibilities, but also the satisfaction of continuing what she and James had built together. "I've been thinking," she said carefully as they cleared the table while the children watched a movie, "about stepping back a bit, delegating more, being more present for Leo." Gabriel studied her. "Because of us, partly," she acknowledged. "But mainly because of what you've shown me. That time with our children is what matters most." She loaded the dishwasher with practiced efficiency. "Watching you with Emma, how you prioritize her despite your financial challenges, it's made me reassess what success really means." As the evening wore on, the children fell asleep on the couch. Gabriel carried Emma to a guest room Tessa had prepared, then returned to find Tessa on the terrace, gazing at the stars. "I should probably get Emma home," he said reluctantly. Tessa turned to him. "Stay," she said simply. "Both of you?" Gabriel hesitated. "Tessa, we need to be realistic about where this is going." "I know exactly where this is going," she said with unexpected conviction. "I'm falling in love with you, Gabriel Mitchell, and I think you might be falling in love with me too." The directness of her statement took his breath away. "And that doesn't scare you, the complications, the differences in our lives?" "Of course it does," she admitted, stepping closer. "But not as much as the thought of letting you go because I was too afraid to try." She took his hands in hers. "Leo adores Emma. I adore you. The rest we can figure out together." Gabriel looked at her, this extraordinary woman who had somehow found value in his ordinary life. "I am falling in love with you," he confessed, "but I need you to understand I can't depend on you financially. I need to stand on my own." "I would never want to change your independence," Tessa assured him. "It's part of who you are, part of what I love, but partnership doesn't mean one person carrying everything alone. It means supporting each other in the ways we each need." Gabriel pulled her close then, kissing her with all the emotion he'd been holding back. When they finally separated, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. "So what happens now?" "Now," Tessa said, her eyes shining, "we see where this goes, one day at a time." 6 months later, Gabriel stood in the garden of Tessa's home, their home now. Though he'd insisted on paying his share by taking over the property management and renovations, watching as Emma helped Leo build an elaborate fort out of cushions and blankets. Baxter the bear sat proudly atop the highest point. He had worried that the transition would be difficult for Emma, moving from their small apartment to this expansive property. But children, he discovered, were remarkably adaptable. Emma had embraced the change with enthusiasm, especially since it meant having Leo as a constant playmate. Gabriel's life had changed in ways he never could have imagined. He'd left his bartending job, but kept working construction, though now as a project manager for a company that specialized in affordable housing, a position Tessa had connected him with, but that he had earned on his own merits. His hours were more regular, allowing him more time with Emma and their newly blended family. Tessa had made changes too. She had restructured her company leadership, reducing her own workload and bringing in talented executives to handle daily operations. She still oversaw major decisions, but worked primarily from home, building a life that prioritized their family while honoring her commitment to the company she and James had created. "Penny for your thoughts." Tessa's voice pulled Gabriel from his reflection as she joined him on the patio, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. "Just thinking about how much has changed in less than a year," he said, turning to face her. "All because of a lost teddy bear." Tessa smiled, glancing at Baxter perched atop the children's fort. "I think about that a lot, actually, how the smallest things can change your whole life." Gabriel tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Any regrets? Not a single one, she said firmly. Though I do wish I'd found the courage to ask you out properly that first day instead of using ice cream as an excuse. Gabriel laughed. I wouldn't have believed you were interested. A billionaire tech CEO and a construction worker sounds like a bad romance novel. Or a perfect one, Tessa countered, rising on her toes to kiss him. Depending on how it ends, Gabriel pulled back slightly, reaching into his pocket. Speaking of endings, he produced a small velvet box. I was going to wait until our dinner tonight, but this moment feels right. Tessa's eyes widened as Gabriel dropped to one knee. I don't have billions to offer you, he said, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. But I can promise to love you and Leo for the rest of my life, to be your partner in everything. To build a family with you that's stronger than anything money could buy. He opened the box, revealing a ring with a modest diamond set in a handcrafted band. I saved for months for this. It's not as grand as it's perfect, Tessa interrupted, tears spilling down her cheeks. You're perfect. Tessa Fairchild, will you marry me? Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. Their kiss was interrupted by excited shrieks as Emma and Leo, who had abandoned their fort to investigate, realized what was happening. Are you going to be my real brother now? Emma asked Leo, bouncing with excitement. I think so, Leo replied, equally enthusiastic. As Gabriel slipped the ring onto Tessa's finger, surrounded by their children's joy, he marveled at how life could change so completely. From struggling to make ends meet to finding a love he never thought possible. From lonely single parenthood to a vibrant, blended family, all because he'd taught his daughter that returning a lost teddy bear was the right thing to do. Later that night, after a celebratory dinner and putting 2 exhausted children to bed, Gabriel and Tessa stood on the terrace under a blanket of stars. You know what today is? Tessa asked softly. Gabriel thought for a moment. Tuesday, she laughed. It's exactly 1 year since Leo lost Baxter in the park. She turned in his arms to face him. 1 year since you left that note with your phone number. 1 year since everything changed. Gabriel pulled her closer. Best year of my life. Mine too, Tessa murmured against his lips. And we're just getting started. Above them, a shooting star streaked across the sky, not that they noticed. They were too busy writing the beginning of their next chapter, one that had started with a lost teddy bear and led to a found family, proving that sometimes the most valuable things in life couldn't be measured in billions.